Hello, and welcome to the launch of the Trauma Informed Parent Podcast. I'm Suzy DeYoung. I'm here with my partner, Catherine Galda. We're here to tell you about the podcast, what to expect in the coming weeks and months, who will be on, why we're doing this, and why it will be very, very valuable for any parent or caregiver or educator, anyone who works with, cares for children who have experienced a trauma. Trauma Informed Parent is something that I started in about 2012 to offer parents and caregivers a resource, just a resource of information on what is trauma and what is good to know about it if a child in your life has experienced it. I did that because when my son suffered a trauma in 2004, there was very little information out there, and we had to learn as we went along. And fortunately, the following has grown. Thank you, everyone who follows us. And we've decided to step away from social media. Well, we'll still be on social media, but to add something to social media and to begin a podcast. And Catherine is going to tell you why we feel this podcast is important.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Suzy. And as I have said before, I'm really excited to have been able to partner up with Suzy on the Trauma Informed Parent podcast and beyond, right? Suzy and I have known each other for going on 13 years now. Is that right?
Yep.
13 years since we started our friendship, realized our kinship in the path of being parents of traumatized young people and what that process has been like for us going through it as parents, but also as powerful women and educators and mental health professionals. And we feel like there's something missing when we talk about trauma, right? There's a lot of research out there. There's a lot of people who have different theoretical perspectives and different interventions that people can use, but it's not particularly user friendly for a caregiver who's trying to cope on a day-to-day basis with a young person who's experienced some, significant traumatic events. So when we're
Exactly.
talking, so when we're talking about trauma in general, right? And Suzy, I think you have a great quote about the overuse of the word.
Yes, there people hear the word trauma lately and will immediately step back and like, oh, there it goes again, because it is a bit overused. And that's good news and bad news. I mean, the good news is it's used. It wasn't used in trauma. I mean, in 2004, when my son had his trauma, it was just referred to for veterans and soldiers, and people never thought to use. So the fact that it's overused means we're learning more. But yeah, author Maria Popova recently referred to trauma as a word so fashionable that we have hollowed it of its meaning by overuse and misuse, by making it a catch-all for anything that challenges and disquiets us. And there's some truth to that.
Yeah, there really is. And but what I think Suzy and I are really hoping to kind of drive home or bring to the table is that, you know, while there's a vast variety of experiences that can be kind of classified as traumatic, we all move through difficult experiences in different ways. And when we look at the core of what like the DSM-5, so I'm a clinical social worker, I'm a clinician psychotherapist. So looking at it through my lens, what we look for is an event where an individual either experiences an actual life-threatening event occur or the perception of a life-threatening event occur, both of which can create within the individual the manifestation of sets of symptoms, right? General fear and anxieties, kind of the most basic. Thinking that the world, is somehow changed and unsafe for us. Symptoms that include nightmares and flooding and emotional overwhelm, difficulty with concentration and basic problem solving, flashbacks, avoidance. So all of those different symptoms, and that's not an exhaustive list, but all of those different symptoms in combination can produce what I look at and what you as caregivers can see in your daily lives of your young people as impact in their ability to function. in their ability to live, to laugh, to love, to learn, to engage and connect with other people. And so it's really important for us to make that distinction. And it's also important for us to understand that while many people can go through traumatic experience, not all of them are going to end up quote unquote traumatized.
Mhm.
So what I'm hoping is that as we go through this podcast and as we launch our webinars, that the parents and caregivers that seek us out, that want to come and kind of learn a little bit more, will be able then to discern for themselves, like, hey, there's something going on here that needs more attention. Or maybe we can move through this together. Maybe as a family, we can change a few things here and there and actually create a space that's more conducive to healing without a tremendous intervention. So this is really all about empowerment, right, Susie? It's about
Exactly.
understanding and
Yep.
empowerment.
And understanding and empowerment. That's exactly it. And we both had mentioned that we both have personal and professional experience, and we want to get more detailed on that with you and share with you what that is. I guess I'll start.
Sure.
As for the personal, I mentioned in 2004, my son had an accident. He was 7 years old. We were trick-or-treating in our town in Connecticut, and we had just finished a long night of many, many homes trick-or-treating, but we stopped one last home, our neighbors, who were elaborately decorated, and they had a fog machine on their porch that was spewing a scary mist, and it was lit underneath by a candle. My son was dressed as a dark rider from The Lord of the Rings. If anyone knows that character, it's a flowing black robe, big hood, long sleeves. He went to run his hand through the mist to see what that felt like, and the sleeve caught the candle. The costume went up in flames, and our neighbor was quick and got it out with his hands. Uh, but that not in time enough for my son to not have third-degree burns on his lower face and his hand. And his siblings witnessed the accident. They were 10 and 5 at the time. He was on life support for a couple of days and then in the hospital for a month. Many skin grafts, many, many excruciatingly painful procedures. And came home and went back to first grade having to wear a compression shield on his face and on his left hand. We got back to normal, quote unquote, as quickly as possible. The doctors were great. The community was great. Everyone was very supportive, but no one mentioned the word trauma or PTSD. We brought him to therapy a couple of times. The therapist felt after a couple of times he was good. He felt he was good. So we moved on. It was in adolescence that many of the symptoms surfaced. We knew whatever he was going through was outside the realm of normal teenage angst. It was quite serious, and we needed to get a lot of professional help. Many good doctors, many not so good. It was actually his burn doctor, when we told him what was going on, who said, "Oh yeah, this is PTSD. We see this often when they hit adolescence." So that was our personal story, and through that I've learned a tremendous amount about why parents and caregivers should know not just medical information, but the emotional side of what happens to kids. Professionally, I left a career in TV production when my daughter was born in 1994 and got my master's in infant parent development from Bank Street College in New York City. Taught preschool for a while, but did a little parent coaching for a while. Then in my town, Newtown, Connecticut, we had the Sandy Hook Elementary School shootings. And after that happened, I got involved in the recovery efforts. So I worked for the Sandy Hook Promise as a community outreach director, where I met Catherine. I was a care coordinator for the Newtown Recovery and Resiliency team, and we helped local residents who had been impacted by the shooting find help. And I ran a speaker series on mental health with the father of one of the victims of the shooting. Jeremy Richmond, and his wife, Jennifer Hensel, created a foundation in her honor. Her name was Avielle Richmond. And with Jennifer and Jeremy, we created a community engagement part of the series, and part of that was a mental health speaker series. Our guests included Bessel van der Kolk, Nadine Burke-Harris, Jane Pauley on bipolar, Dan Harris on meditation. We had some wonderful speakers. So through my work in Newtown, the speaker series, and what I currently do, which is I research for an author named Andrew Solomon, and I'm currently researching for him the subject of youth suicide, which is at a bit of a crisis point in our world right now. So through all those venues and our personal experience, I've learned quite a bit about trauma, and I hope to bring that to all of you.
Wow. Susie, your story is incredible. It really is. Every time I hear it, I've heard it so many times, but every time I hear it, it just uh, it inspires me. The
Thanks.
strength and fortitude that you had to develop, right? Endure to be able to get to here. I'm going to do my story kind of in reverse order, starting with my professional career because I have been a therapist, and oh, you have a cattail. And my therapeutic experience actually feeds into our personal family story. So I have been a therapist for about 25 years, specializing in the field of trauma. I did my graduate work at Columbia University and then went on to work for the first decade plus of my career in a private psychiatric hospital in Katona, New York, called Four Winds Hospital. It was through that I was able to help them launch their trauma recovery program, which was a series of uh, psychodynamic and also psychoeducational groups on the subject of trauma. Increasing insight and awareness helps to increase command of the signs and symptoms that clients go through, and as a result helps them to feel more empowered in their own treatment, which, all of that was a really wonderful experience for me and a great place to learn how to be the clinician that I wanted to be. I did take a break in 2005, about 1 month before my daughter was born, and I took a break for about 7 years to have two kids, two girls. And it was our oldest girl, Hannah, who was and is a survivor of the Sandy Hook school shootings, which is how, unfortunately, I came back into clinical work. So Hannah was 7 years old at the time, and like Susie, once we made sure that medically she was okay, she was uninjured. The therapist in me said, "Okay, we need to go to treatment." And Hannah was, in the aftermath, was in therapy 2 different times between the ages of 7 and 9, with really excellent outcome. When I refer to a kind of a collective trauma, right? A bunch of people can go through the same experience and have a completely different outcome. Hannah was among a fortunate small group whose symptoms were, I won't say minimal, but medium in relationship to the events, where some of her classmates and certainly our whole community was highly impacted in various ways. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the podcast and we go through the webinar series. But for me, I knew it was time to come back to work, knowing full well, though, that as part of the impacted community, that I was not capable, nor did I want to be a clinician in our town, but went back, as I said, with Susie. I worked on 2 different grants. One was through the American Academy of Pediatrics, where myself and another colleague developed and executed the care coordination portion of the Newtown recovery effort, where we helped all of, any family that was in concentric circles, so within the confines of Newtown and even beyond, to find appropriate treatment, to make sure that the appropriate clinicians were coming into our community, and that we were creating the best connections possible for the symptoms that were presenting to help people get on their way to recovery. Then that got picked up by the Newtown Recovery and Resiliency team, where I got to work with Susie for the life of that grant, that Department of Justice grant. And that Newtown Recovery and Resiliency team, even though it's not called that anymore, it continues to exist today,
Yes.
which is a beautiful lasting legacy, is being there to help the folks in our community at the time to be able to get the help that they need,
Yep.
to be able to
Definitely.
move forward through healing. So that's my personal and professional story. Susie and I connected, gosh, it's got to be 2 years ago now around this project, a year and a half,
Yep. Yep.
about a year and a half.
Yes, we've done a couple of free webinars, and we're launching some workshops, and we're excited because, there's a lot out there, a lot of podcasts, a lot of work on trauma. But what I think Catherine and I can offer, and it's pretty obvious from these past few minutes, is very deeply impactful personal experiences combined with professional work that we've done. And that's why we want to bring this to you. And we're really excited because we are going to be, our first guest is going to be Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, author of The Body Keeps the Score, which is a seminal book on trauma and so helpful for anyone who is caring for a young person who has had trauma. We're also going to be having a prominent pediatrician from Newtown, Connecticut, who has been here for decades and has worked with many families who've experienced trauma. We are going to have faith leaders who are working to help their colleagues and their congregations better understand the impact of trauma. What I'm currently researching right now is the intersection of trauma and spirituality. So I'd like to bring on guests who can talk about that. We're going to have the creator of The Second Wound, which helps survivors of trauma deal with the ancillary trauma of re-victimization in the form of shame, gaslighting, and victim blaming that often comes from family members or other adults. And her story is quite fascinating. We also want to hear from you. If you have would like to share your story and you feel it'd be helpful for others, email us at traumainformedparent@gmail.com and we will definitely consider having you on the podcast.
Yeah, we are so excited. I know in our discussions, Susie and I have really wanted to bring the blend of experience of life experience and information to the table for people. I mean, it's great to read about theory. It's great to read about all the different things that you can do, but putting it into practical application in your home while everybody's going to work and going to school, and there might be other kids in the house and pets, it looks different in its practical application in life. And, having walked those miles and made, had some success and made some errors, you know, I think that something like this is timely and it's helpful and, what I think, at least for me, Susie, what I think I want is for, anybody that comes and joins us to be able to take something away that they can not, almost plug in and play, right? I
Yes.
learned this today. I can apply it tonight. I can see how it works. If it works for me, great. If it doesn't work for me, I can pull another skill or I can pull another technique and really talk it through and give people time to be able to ask the questions that they're kind of are running through their heads.
Yeah. I look at it as, I take myself back in time. What would I have wanted to hear back in 2004? I would have loved to known there was such a thing as trauma-informed music therapy, art therapy, sand therapy. Kids aren't always or shouldn't always talk about the trauma. That could be re-traumatizing, and most of the time they don't want to. But when there's things like play and music and drama therapy and all of that, it can be an incredible way to get through other avenues to a child. So yeah, I look at it as what would I have wanted to hear? What symptoms did I just look at as, oh, he's just being quirky versus, oh, this could be related to the accident. So hope you'll join us. We will keep you posted as to the dates and the guests, and we look forward to having you all join us.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing and hearing you in the not too distant future.
Bye.
Bye.